What's going on, guys? Lewis here with Precision Camera, and we're here today on a beautiful Sunday hanging out on 6th Street at Easy Tiger talking about the X100V. So I've been a huge fan of the X100 series since its original debut in 2012. There have been an insane amount of changes since the original X100. We've had the S, we've had the T, we had the F, and now we have the X100V. If you weren't familiar with the terminology of why there's a V to it, the S is for the second version, T is for the third, F is for fourth, and I guess you can't really use F twice, so we stuck with Roman numeral V. Some of the big changes that we're seeing in the newer one, as expected, it's going to get the 4th generation of the X-Trans sensor, which is going to bump it up to be a 26 megapixel camera. It also has the 4th generation of the X processor, which is going to give it very fast autofocus and a lot of really great processing speed. One of the first things that you see that are different going from the X100F into the V is you lose the touchpad in the back, so no up, down, left, right arrows. Instead, you are given a touchscreen, which does work really well with the touch autofocus, so that when I have it up to my eye with my right thumb, I can actually be moving the focus point. It works surprisingly well. Another big change is now you get a flip LCD in the back that actually I feel like we've all been waiting for. Now that we had gotten it from the XT series, now it's in the X100 series, so glad to see that that came along. That does change a little bit of the form factor. It does feel a little bit thicker, but with that screen there's a lot of mechanics back here that it's kind of to be expected. And it is a little disappointing to see that they went with a UHS 1 card slot. You only get a single one, but I feel it should have gone to a UHS 2, especially when you're talking about being able to shoot 4K and high burst rates. You really want that speed, so if you're going to get the UHS 1 cards, at least make sure it's a class 3 speed. Now let's talk about the lens. You get the same focal length as all the X100 series that we've gotten in the past, but we are going to get a few changes. We're going to get 8 elements in 6 groups, and now we get an additional aspherical element, which is really going to help out with the chromatic aberration, especially with those 2 huge megapixel upgrades that we got from the F. And in the X100V, we're going to get weather sealing. But don't take it on the range just yet. You're gonna need a special filter to go on the front of it to really make it weather sealed. On the side here, we're gonna get a mini HDMI as well as an upgraded micro USB. We do get a mic port as well as a remote, but it is a 2.5 millimeter thread, so it's not gonna take your regular like headphone jack. It's gonna be a little bit smaller, so keep that in mind. We're also gonna see some changes to the ISO dial up here at the top. Now, remember it used to have that spring, so you'd pull it up, rotate for the ISO, and then it'd snap back down. Now it just stays up, which makes it much easier to find what ISO you wanna be at. As for some of the video features, we're gonna get 4K at 30, which is something we saw in the X Pro 3. We're also gonna get that 120 slow motion and 1080 at 60. And for your burst mode, you're gonna go from 8 frames per second up to 11 with the X100V, and if you put it in the electronic mode, you are gonna get 20 frames per second. And one of the things I think is severely underutilized with the X100 series is the leaf shutter. If you aren't familiar with what the leaf shutter is, the shutter is actually gonna be in the lens, not in the body, and instead of having an up and down curtain, you're gonna get kind of like a blade that comes in and comes out. So when does the leaf shutter really come in handy? Let's say you're out shooting on location and you got a bright sunny day. Well, you can overpower the sun because your sync speed goes over the traditional 1/250th of a second like normal cameras. I've seen some of these X100s crank that shutter all the way up, sometimes to 1/2500th of a second. So what does that mean? If you're at 250, that means you can go from 250 to 500 to 1000 to 2000 pretty easily. That's 3 stops. And if you're at f8, you can take it down to 5.6, then 4, then 2.8, which gives you a 2.8 depth of field instead of having a f8 depth of field. That's huge. So you really have to take advantage of that if you know that it's there. So now that we've talked about all the specs that comes in this new little guy, let's go find Alyssa and go shoot some photos. Another thing I forgot to mention previously was the film simulation modes. You're gonna get the same film simulation modes that you find on all the up-to-date Fuji cameras of today. So the same thing you're gonna find in the X Pro 3. So some final thoughts on the X100V. It is an amazingly fun camera. I've personally owned two X100 Series cameras in the past, and I've always had them as a second camera. As a working photographer, you shoot around a ton, and when you're going out on the weekends, you still want to be creative, but you pick up your regular DSLR or whatever else you're shooting with, and you go back into that work mentality. And this kind of takes it away from that. The images that it creates are incredibly unique. It's very usable, especially with that back touch autofocus, and it's just a really fun camera to shoot. And it reminds you why you like shooting photos in the first place without making it feel like work if you are a working photographer. It's a perfect camera, not just for street, but for travel. I've taken plenty of trips and only have taken an X100 with me and been completely fine and very happy with the images. It'll even top out even better if you get the teleconverter, and that turns it to a 50mm equivalent. So now you have a 35 f2 and a 50 f2 all in this little size. It's tough to beat. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, follow all of our Instagram platforms on the bottom, and I'll see you guys on the next one.